He was paid to watch the Cherokee woman, but what she says makes him change his mind. Derek Thompson didn't ask questions when the money was good. After 3 lost harvests and debts piling up like storm clouds, any job that paid in cash was welcome. The rancher, Colonel Harrison, had been clear: watch an indigenous woman for a few weeks until some land issues were resolved. When he arrived at the isolated property on the outskirts of Tulsa, Derek found exactly what he expected: a simple building with iron bars on one of the windows. It was there that his expectations ended. The woman behind the bars didn't seem defeated or scared as he had imagined. She watched him with eyes that seemed to see through his soul. "You are the new guard," she said without blinking. It wasn't a question. Derek adjusted his hat, unsettled by that penetrating gaze. "I'm Derek. I'll be here for a while." "I know who you are, Derek Thompson from St. Anthony Creek. I also know why you're here." The man stopped mid-step. How did she know where he was from? The colonel hadn't mentioned they already knew each other. "You must be confusing me with someone else." The woman smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm not confused. I know your wife Jennifer has been gone for 2 years. I know your daughter Rachel lives in Bakersfield, and that you haven't spoken to her since her mother's funeral. I know your land is mortgaged, and you have until the end of the month to pay off the debt." Derek felt his blood run cold. That information was far too private for a stranger to know. "Who told you these things?" "No one needs to tell me. People talk, and I listen. I hear many things here in the middle of the bush." She approached the bars, and Derek could see she was younger than he initially thought. Perhaps in her early 30s, with long, dark hair that fell over her shoulders. She wore simple but well-kept clothes, and there was a dignity in her posture that contrasted with her situation. "My name is Naomi. I'm from the Hope Springs settlement upriver. I'm here because my people need me here." "The colonel said you're here until some land matters are settled." Naomi let out a bitter laugh. "Land matters? Is that what he calls theft now?" Derek didn't respond. What happened between ranchers and Indians wasn't his problem. He was there to do a job, get paid, and save his own land. He couldn't afford a guilty conscience. "You seem like a good man, Derek," she continued. "A man who has suffered a lot. That's why I'll tell you something. You're not just guarding a prisoner. You're being used in a much bigger farce. I don't want to hear your stories. But you will. Because this story involves your daughter, too." Derek stopped walking away and slowly turned. "Rachel, what does my daughter have to do with this? She works at the county clerk's office in Bakersfield, doesn't she? Recording property transfers, deeds, those things." "How do you know that?" "Because some of those deeds she's recording are from my settlement's land that's being illegally transferred to Colonel Harrison and other ranchers in the area." Derek shook his head. "You're lying. Your daughter doesn't know the documents are fake. She's just an employee following orders. But you can ask her about the deeds for the Death River area she recorded in the last few weeks. You can ask if the name Hope Springs appeared on any document." The man felt a tightness in his chest. Rachel had mentioned in one of the few letters they exchanged that she had been working on a lot of land transfers lately. Documents that came straight from the capital with orders for immediate filing. "Even if it were true, it's not my problem. Isn't it? When they discover your daughter filed falsified documents, do you think she'll keep her job, or will they need a scapegoat when the fraud comes to light?" Derek clenched his fists. The woman was planting doubts in his head, and he didn't like it one bit. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you can help prevent a great injustice, and by doing so, you can protect your daughter and maybe even save your own land." "How?" "First, I need you to understand the whole truth about what's happening here." Naomi sat on a bench near the bars, smoothing her skirt with calm, precise gestures. 3 months ago, government officials showed up at our settlement with an eviction notice. They said our ancestral lands now belong to ranchers who had legal property deeds that never existed before. "But don't you have guaranteed rights?" "We do, or we should. But indigenous rights are easily ignored when money is involved. Colonel Harrison discovered our region has a spring that can supply thousands of acres of farmland. Water is worth more than gold on the prairie." Derek knew that was true. His own property had lost value precisely due to lack of water in the recent drought years. Our chief, my father, tried to negotiate. He offered to share the water rights in exchange for a guarantee that our settlement would remain untouched. That's when I offered myself as collateral for the negotiations. Collateral? An old tradition. In conflicts between tribes, sometimes a member from each side stays as a voluntary hostage to ensure agreements are honored. I came here voluntarily, believing it would only be for a few days. Derek was beginning to understand the situation. But they're not honoring the agreement. Not only are they not honoring it, they're using my absence to pressure my people. Without the chief's daughter present, many important decisions are suspended. It's a way to weaken our resistance. The sincerity in her voice was undeniable. Derek had known many liars in his life, and Naomi didn't seem to be one of them. And what does this have to do with me? You were hired not just to watch me, but to be a witness. When something happens to me, you'll be able to say I was fine, that I was treated properly, that anything that might happen wasn't the Colonel's fault. A chill ran down Derek's spine. What kind of thing? I'm not sure. Perhaps an accident, perhaps a failed escape attempt, something that justifies my permanent absence and gives the Colonel a free hand to take our land. You're being paranoid. Am I? Then why are you the fourth guard in 3 weeks? What happened to the other 3? Derek didn't know how to answer that. The Colonel had only said he needed someone reliable, without mentioning previous guards. The others asked too many questions, Naomi continued, or got too involved. That's why they chose you now, a desperate man in debt who can't afford to question orders. Then why are you telling me this if I'm so reliable to them? Because you still have a daughter to protect, because there's still honor in your eyes, even if wounded by suffering, and because I believe every man deserves the chance to choose the right side of history. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot, as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Derek spent the rest of the day troubled by Naomi's words. He tried to convince himself it was all made up, but small details began to make sense. The speed with which he got the job, the payment too generous for a simple task, the isolation of the property. When night fell, he brought food to Naomi as instructed. "Thank you," she said, accepting the plate through the opening in the bars. "Why doesn't your family come for you?" "Because that would break the agreement. And my father is a man of his word, even when others are not." Derek sat in a nearby chair. The loneliness of the property was starting to weigh on him. "Tell me about your daughter," Naomi asked softly. "Why?" "Because a father who has lost touch with his daughter carries a pain I recognize. My mother left when I was a child. I know that wound." Derek hesitated, but something in her voice invited trust. Rachel looked a lot like her mother. After Jennifer was gone, I couldn't look at her without remembering everything I had lost. I ended up pushing away the 2 people I loved most. And now it's too late. Rachel blames me for her mother's sadness in her final years, says I was never present, that I always prioritized work on the ranch. Were you? The simple question hit Derek like a punch. "I was," he admitted, "but I thought I was working for them, to give them a better life." "And did they want a better life, or did they want you present?" Derek didn't answer, but the answer was obvious. "It's not too late," Naomi said gently. "A daughter always has a place reserved in her heart for her father, no matter how much time passes. How can you be sure?" "Because I am also a daughter, and because I know Rachel has been asking about you." Derek's head snapped up. "How do you know that?" "The communication networks between our communities are more efficient than white people imagine. News travels by river, by roads, between acquaintances. Rachel has been asking about Derek Thompson from St. Anthony Creek. She wants to know how you are, if you need help." Derek's heart raced. "She said that?" "She told Mrs. Margaret at the general store in Bakersfield that she was worried about her father, that she heard your lands were in trouble." Tears welled in the man's eyes. "Why doesn't she come to me then?" "For the same reason you don't go to her. Pride, fear of rejection, shame over past mistakes." Naomi moved closer to the bars. "Derek, You have a chance to get your daughter back, but not while you're serving the interests of men who destroy families for greed. What do you want me to do? First, I want you to investigate. Go into town tomorrow as you plan to buy supplies, but stop by the county clerk's office. Talk to Rachel. Ask about the land records for the Hope Springs area. And then? Then you will decide if you want to be an accomplice to an injustice or if you want to be the man your daughter needs you to be. The next morning, Derek set off for town with a list of supplies and a heart heavy with doubt. The county clerk's office was on the main street of Bakersfield, a simple but well-kept building where Rachel had worked for 2 years. When he entered, he saw her behind a counter organizing documents. She had grown up, become a beautiful and serious woman who looked even more like her mother. When she looked up and recognized him, a mix of surprise and caution crossed her face. "Father?" "Hi, Rachel." They stared at each other for a moment that seemed eternal. "What are you doing here?" "I'm working on a ranch near here. I thought I'd stop by to see how you are." The formality between them was painful, but at least she hadn't sent him away. "I'm fine, working." "I heard you process a lot of land transfers." Rachel nodded, unsuspecting of the conversation's direction. "Lately, yes. The government has cleared many stalled processes, mainly in the Death River region." Derek's heart sank. Naomi was right. "Do you remember any records involving an area called Hope Springs?" Rachel stopped organizing the papers and looked at him curiously. "Yes, I remember. It was one of the largest parcels. But, Dad, why are you asking about that?" "It's just, I met some people from the area. I got curious." "They were strange documents," admitted Rachel, lowering her voice. "They came directly from the capital with orders for immediate registration. Normally, these processes go through several reviews, but these had urgent stamps." "Strange how?" "The old deeds for the area weren't in the archive, and when I tried to check the property history, I found references to a Cherokee settlement. But the new documents didn't mention that." Derek felt his stomach turn. "What did you do?" "I filed them as ordered, but I kept copies of everything and sent a formal inquiry to the superintendent's office asking about the procedure. I'm still waiting for a reply." "Rachel," said Derek, feeling he was treading on dangerous ground, "do you think there might be something wrong with those documents?" She looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Dad, I think someone is using our notary's office to legalize the appropriation of Cherokee land. But I have no way to prove it, and if I'm wrong, I could lose my job. And if you're right, if I'm right, I'm being used to commit a federal crime, and that could cost me much more than my job." Derek saw fear in his daughter's eyes and felt a rage growing in his chest. Rage at himself for being involved in it, rage at the colonel for manipulating innocent people, rage at a system that allowed the powerful to trample the weak. "Rachel, I need to tell you something." He recounted his situation, omitting only the most delicate details about Naomi. When he finished, he saw tears in his daughter's eyes. "Dad, I knew your land was in trouble. I've been trying to save money to help, but my salary is small." You wanted to help me?" "Of course I did. You're my father. No matter how much we drifted apart, I never stopped caring." Derek felt his throat tighten. "I thought you hated me." "I was angry, yes, but hate, never. I missed you every day." Father and daughter hugged over the counter, crying years of longing and misunderstandings. "What do we do now?" asked Rachel. "We're going to find out the truth, and we're going to protect you from this situation." When Derek returned to the property late in the afternoon, he found Naomi waiting anxiously for news. "How did it go?" "You were right about everything." He told her about the conversation with Rachel and the suspicious documents filed at the notary's office. "Your daughter is a brave and principled woman," said Naomi, "exactly like her father can be, if he chooses the right path." "What do you propose?" "We need proof, documents that show the fraud, and we need to act fast." "Why?" "Because last night I overheard a conversation between the colonel and other men. They're planning to accelerate the schedule. They want to complete all the land transfers by the end of this week." "And you?" Naomi lowered her eyes. "For me, they're planning an accident for tomorrow night. A fire, perhaps, something that leaves no evidence. Derek's blood ran cold. I won't let that happen. Then you need to act tonight, when the colonel and his thugs leave for the meeting in town. How do you know about the meeting? Because they don't care about talking in front of a Cherokee woman they believe is helpless. They think we're animals incapable of understanding their plans. Naomi stepped closer to the bars and held Derek's hand through them. Listen carefully. In the colonel's office, there's a safe behind the painting on the right wall. The combination is 1507-1888. Date of emancipation, an irony from a man who still practices slavery. How do you know the combination? Because he used it several times in front of me when he thought I was unconscious after the injections they gave me to keep me calm. Injections? To make me docile, but I was developing resistance, pretending to be more affected than I really was. Derek was impressed by that woman's intelligence and courage. What will I find in the safe? Original documents of the indigenous lands, correspondence with corrupt government officials, proof of bribe payments, everything we need to prove the fraud. And how will we use this evidence? Rachel can make copies at the notary's office and send them to the regional superintendency, to the district attorney's office, to the press. A multiple-pronged complaint that can't be silenced. And you? How do you get out of here? Naomi smiled for the first time since he had met her. Leave that to me. When you come back with the documents, I'll be free. How? You'll see. That night, Derek waited until he was sure that the colonel and his men had left for the city. Then he went to the office in the main house, forcing the lock with a tool that Naomi had instructed him to improvise. The safe was exactly where she said. The combination worked on the first try. Inside, he found an impressive amount of incriminating documents. There were original deeds to indigenous lands dating back to the 19th century. Recent correspondence between the colonel and state government officials discussing adjustments to property records. Receipts for bank transfers to accounts of notary offices in various cities. A corruption network much larger than he had imagined. One document in particular caught his attention. A list of obstacles to be removed. Naomi's name was marked with the date of the next day. When he returned to free her, he found the bars open and Naomi waiting outside. How did you get out? The locks are old, and I had plenty of time to study them, she said, showing an improvised tool made of metal wires. Why didn't you escape before? Because I needed the evidence first, and because I needed someone I could trust to carry this fight forward. They made their way to the city under the cover of night, arriving at Rachel's house just before dawn. The young woman was surprised to see her father accompanied by a Cherokee woman, but asked no questions. Daughter, I need you to copy these documents and distribute them as I will explain. Rachel examined the papers and was visibly shaken. Father, this is serious, very serious. I know, that's why we need to act fast. While Rachel worked on the copies, Naomi told her her full story. The young woman listened in silence, with tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry for what they did to your people, said Rachel when Naomi finished. Thank you. But now we have a chance to stop them from continuing. By dawn, the copies were ready and were distributed according to the plan. Rachel took one set to the regional superintendency. Another was mailed to the federal prosecutor's office. A third reached the hands of a journalist known for investigating corruption cases. Naomi went to her settlement to gather her people and prepare them for the changes to come. Derek stayed in the city, awaiting the developments and taking the opportunity to rebuild his relationship with Rachel. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. The reaction from the official bodies was swift and forceful. Within 3 days, a task force was formed to investigate the allegations. Colonel Harrison was detained at his ranch, along with 2 state government officials and 3 different notary registrars. But the victory came at a price. When authorities arrived at the property where Derek had worked, they found evidence that other crimes had been planned. Among the seized papers was an order to eliminate undesirable witnesses, a list that included not only Naomi, but also Rachel and Derek himself. They were going to kill us all, said Rachel, shaken when they learned of the discovery. But they didn't succeed, replied Derek, embracing his daughter, and now they'll pay for everything they've done. However, Derek's troubles were far from over. With the Colonel's arrest, the promised payment never arrived. His debts remained outstanding, and the deadline to pay off the farm's mortgage was fast approaching. It was then that Naomi reappeared in their lives. "I have a proposal," she said, visiting father and daughter on a rainy October morning. "What kind of proposal?" asked Derek. "My people have decided to create a partnership program with small rural producers. We want to develop sustainable agriculture on our lands, but we need technical knowledge and skilled labor." Rachel was immediately interested. "What kind of partnership?" "You keep your property, but also work part of the time on our lands. In return, we offer access to our spring water and knowledge of traditional techniques that increase productivity without degrading the soil." Derek hesitated. "And the payment?" "Part in cash, part in goods, part in knowledge. Enough to settle your debts and still ensure a stable income for the future." "Why would you do this for us?" Naomi smiled. "Because you risked everything to help us. Because Rachel has knowledge of documentation that can protect us from future attempts at land theft. And because we believe that Cherokee and non-Cherokee can work together for mutual benefit." The proposal was tempting, but Derek still had doubts. "What if it doesn't work out?" "Then at least we tried. But I believe it will work. You know the land. Rachel knows the law. We know the ancestral techniques. Together, we are stronger than apart." Rachel looked at her father expectantly. "Dad, I think we should accept. You would agree to leave your job at the county clerk's office? To work with both of you, recovering the family land?" "Of course I would." Derek felt immense emotion upon hearing those words. For the first time in years, he saw a future where he and his daughter would be united again. "All right," he said. "We accept." The following months were of hard work, but also of discovery and growth. Derek learned indigenous cultivation techniques that his ancestors had forgotten. Rachel helped the settlement create a land registry system that legally protected them from future encroachment. And Naomi became a bridge between two worlds that had always existed side by side, but rarely understood each other. The partnership's first harvest was a success. The crops grown with traditional techniques were of superior quality and found a ready market in nearby towns. Access to the spring water tripled the productivity of Derek's land. But the greatest result was in the relationship between father and daughter. "Thank you," said Rachel one afternoon as they worked together in the field. "For what?" "For giving me the chance to know the real you. The man you are when you fight for what's right." Derek stopped working and looked at his daughter. "I'm the one who should thank you. You gave me a second chance I didn't deserve." "Everyone deserves a second chance, Dad, especially when they have the courage to change." That evening, Naomi dined with them, as had become customary on Thursday nights. "I have news about the Colonel's trial," she announced. "Good news?" "Very good. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. The corrupt officials got shorter sentences but lost their positions. And all the fraudulent land records were annulled. And the compensations? Approved. My people will receive significant compensation for the damages caused. And you too, as witnesses who risked yourselves to expose the scheme." Derek was surprised. "Us? But we didn't ask for compensation." "The district attorney's office included you automatically. They consider you were victims of the scheme as well, since Derek was deceived about the nature of the work, and Rachel was used involuntarily to register false documents. The compensation, when it arrived, was enough to completely pay off Derek's debts and still allow for investments in the property. But the money, as important as it was, wasn't the greatest prize he had won. 1 year after the whole story began, Derek was sitting on the porch of his renovated house, watching Rachel teach filing techniques to young people from the settlement. Naomi approached and sat beside him. "What are you thinking about? About how things can change so quickly. A year ago, I was a desperate man, ready to do anything for money. I was estranged from my daughter, and without hope for the future. And now? Now I have a united family, a purpose that goes beyond profit, and a peace I haven't felt in decades." Naomi smiled. "You've changed a lot, Derek. But the seeds of that change were always in you. They just needed the right conditions to blossom." "And you? Do you regret risking everything to expose the corruption?" "Never. My people are safe, our lands are protected, and we managed to create something new and positive from the pain. There's no regret in that." Rachel approached them, sweaty but smiling after her work. "Dad, the young people from the settlement want you to teach irrigation techniques tomorrow. It would be an honor. And Naomi, my mother wanted to know if you can have dinner with us on Sunday. She wants to thank you personally for everything you've done for us." "Your mother?" Rachel blushed slightly. "Nathan's mother. We are getting to know each other better." Derek smiled. Nathan was one of the young men from the settlement who worked with them, a serious and hard-working young man who had clearly been interested in Rachel from day one. "He's a good young man," said Naomi. "Rachel chose well." "We're still just getting to know each other," protested Rachel, but the smile on her face said otherwise. That night, after Rachel and Naomi had retired, Derek stayed alone on the porch, reflecting on the last few months. He thought about the chain of events that had begun with a seemingly simple job and turned into a complete revolution in his life. He thought about how he had almost become an accomplice to a terrible injustice out of financial desperation. How his daughter had almost been inadvertently dragged into a criminal scheme. How a courageous woman had risked her life to protect her people and ended up saving an entire family in the process. More importantly, he thought about how good people could do bad things when they felt cornered by circumstances, and how one person's courage could inspire others to find the best within themselves. The next day, as promised, Derek taught irrigation techniques to the young people of the settlement. It was interesting to see how methods he considered modern combined naturally with traditional knowledge that the indigenous people had preserved for generations. "See," said Naomi, watching the work. "When there's mutual respect, everyone learns and everyone benefits." During lunch, the settlement's chief, Naomi's father, approached Derek. "I want to thank you for what you did for my daughter and my people," said the older man, speaking English with a heavy but clear accent. "I'm the one who should thank you. You saved my family when you didn't even know it needed saving. My daughter has a good eye for people. When I said you were a good man despite the circumstances, I trusted her judgment. She risked a lot by trusting me." The chief smiled. "A warrior woman always knows when a risk is worth taking." That afternoon, on his way home, Derek thought about the chief's words. Naomi had indeed risked everything by trusting him. She could have tried to escape alone or simply accepted her fate. Instead, she chose to believe that a desperate man could still do the right thing when presented with the facts. That trust had transformed him. It not only saved him from participating in a crime, but forced him to confront his own nature and choose what kind of person he wanted to be. When he got home, he found Rachel organizing papers on the kitchen table. "What are you doing?" "Preparing the documents to formalize our partnership with the settlement. We want everything to be official and transparent." Derek was impressed by his daughter's meticulousness. "You're becoming an excellent administrator. I learned from the best," she said, smiling, "and I learned that legal details can protect or destroy people depending on how they're used." "You're right." Rachel stopped working and looked at her father. "Dad, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Do you regret anything about what happened?" Derek thought for a moment. "I regret taking the job without asking questions. I regret being too greedy to question something that seemed too good to be true. But I don't regret meeting Naomi and learning the truth." "What about us, our separation all these years?" "I regret that every day, but I'm also thankful every day that we managed to find each other again." Rachel stood up and hugged her father. "Me too, Dad. Me too." That evening, Naomi came for dinner as had become customary. During the meal, she brought news from Tulsa. The investigation uncovered more. It seems Colonel Harrison's scheme extended to other states too. More indigenous lands. Indigenous lands, Cherokee settlements, even small producers like you, Dad. Any property with valuable resources was in their sights. Derek shook his head. "How many people were harmed?" "Many. but also many others were saved because you had the courage to speak up. Rachel was interested in the legal aspects. Were you able to recover all the stolen lands? Almost all. Some situations are more complicated because the buyers didn't know the documents were fake. But in most cases, we managed to reverse the fraudulent transfers. And the innocent buyers? They're being compensated with funds confiscated from the criminals. No one lost money except the criminals themselves. The justice of the situation satisfied Derek. It was good to know that secondary victims were also being protected. And what happens now, he asked. Now my people are working to ensure this never happens again. We're creating a monitoring network with other settlements and traditional communities, and establishing partnerships like ours with honest rural producers. A mutual protection network? Exactly. When good people work together, it becomes much harder for bad people to take advantage of any of them. The idea impressed Rachel. It's like creating an extended family among different communities. That's a good way to think about it, agreed Naomi. After dinner, the three of them went out to the porch to enjoy the starry night. The sky was particularly clear, and the stars shone brightly over the prairie. My grandmother used to say that stars are the spirits of ancestors protecting us, Naomi commented. My grandmother said something similar, Derek recalled. That each star was a prayer answered. So we're well protected tonight, said Rachel, looking at the starry sky. They stayed silent for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Naomi spoke. You know this story is going to spread, don't you? What do you mean? Asked Rachel. The story of how a desperate man chose to do the right thing and saved not only his family, but an entire community. Those stories travel far, especially among our people. Is that good or bad? Derek wanted to know. It's good. It means other people in similar situations will know it's possible to choose the right path, even when everything seems lost. Rachel smiled. So it wasn't just our family that was saved. Our story might save other families too. Exactly. Derek felt moved by the idea that his suffering and his transformation could serve as inspiration for others. I never thought my life could be an example for anyone. Every life can be an example, said Naomi gently. The question is what kind of example we want to give. That night, Derek dreamed of his late wife, Jennifer. In the dream, she was smiling and said she was proud of the man he had become and the way he had regained his daughter's love. When he woke up, he didn't feel sad as he usually did after dreams of Jennifer. Instead, he felt peace and gratitude. During breakfast, he told the dream to Rachel. I think Mum would really be happy, said his daughter. She always believed you were a good man even in the hard times. Why did you never tell me that before? Because you weren't ready to hear it. But now you are. Derek reflected on those words. Truly, a year ago he wouldn't have been able to hear praise about himself. He was consumed by bitterness and failure. Now he could accept that maybe there had always been goodness in him, just hidden under layers of pain and despair. Rachel, can I ask you something? Of course, Dad. Tell me about your mother in the last years. The good things. I want to remember her happy, not just suffering. Rachel smiled, and throughout the entire morning, she told stories about small moments of joy that Jennifer had experienced. A garden she had cultivated, books she had read, friendships she had kept in town. Derek discovered that despite all the sadness, his wife had not been completely unhappy. She spoke of you with longing, not with anger, Rachel revealed. She said you were like a tree that needed time to blossom again after a drought. I wish she could see who I am now. I think she can see, and I think she knows you've finally found enough water to blossom. That afternoon, Naomi brought Nathan to meet Derek officially. The young Cherokee man was respectful and serious, but Derek noticed the genuine love in his eyes when he looked at Rachel. Your father would like to speak with me alone, said Nathan, following the courtesy traditions of his people. It would be an honor, replied Derek. The two men walked to the edge of the property, where a small fence divided Derek's land from the territory of the settlement. I want to ask permission to court your daughter officially, Nathan said directly. Derek appreciated the honesty. Rachel is a grown woman who can make her own decisions, but I'm glad you show respect for our family. Respect is the foundation of any lasting relationship. I agree. Tell me your plans for the future. Nathan explained that he was studying agronomy through a government program for indigenous youth. He wanted to combine traditional knowledge with modern techniques to help his community prosper. He also spoke about his desire to work on the legal protection of indigenous lands. "Those are noble goals," said Derek, "and they align well with Rachel's interests. She inspires me every day. She's intelligent, brave, and has a generous heart. She truly does. And she deserves to be loved by someone who recognizes those qualities." The two men returned home with a mutual understanding. Derek had given his blessing, not because it was necessary, but because it was important for Nathan to earn the respect of the family of the woman he loved. During dinner, Nathan's initial tension dissipated, and he showed himself to be good-humored and intelligent. Rachel was visibly happy, and Derek was glad to see his daughter finding love again. After the couple left for a walk under the stars, Naomi and Derek stayed talking on the porch. "Nathan is a good young man," Derek commented. "He is, and Rachel is a special woman. They complement each other well." "Have you ever been married, Naomi?" She hesitated before answering. "I was. My husband passed away 5 years ago." "I'm sorry. It was an illness the doctors couldn't cure, but he lived a full life and died in peace knowing he was loved." "Did you have children?" "No, we never could. But we raised many nieces and nephews. Among our people, all children are children of the whole community." Derek noticed a melancholy in her voice he hadn't detected before. "Do you miss having your own children?" "Sometimes. But I've learned there are many ways to be a mother and a father. You two have become family to me in a way I never expected." The statement moved Derek. "You saved our family, Naomi. We are the ones who owe gratitude." "It's not a question of owing. It's a question of love. You gave me something I thought I had lost forever. The hope that different people can come together and create something beautiful." When Rachel and Nathan returned from their walk, they found Derek and Naomi still talking on the porch. "Dad, Nathan told me about a festival the settlement is holding next month. They want to invite us to participate." "What kind of festival?" Nathan explained it was a celebration of the first harvest from the partnership between the settlement and the local farmers. There would be music, dancing, food, and cultural presentations from all the communities involved. "It would be an honor to participate," said Derek. "And I can help with the organization," offered Rachel. "I have experience with documentation and planning." "That would be wonderful," said Naomi. "We want it to be a demonstration of how different cultures can work together in harmony." In the following weeks, preparations for the festival became the main focus of the entire region. Derek contributed knowledge about food storage and transportation. Rachel organized all the documentation and communication between the communities. Naomi coordinated the cultural and spiritual aspects of the event. Nathan became a constant presence in their lives, helping with the preparations and courting Rachel in a respectful and persistent way. Derek watched with satisfaction the blossoming romance between them. 1 week before the festival, unexpected news arrived from Tulsa. The trial of Colonel Harrison had resulted in even more shocking discoveries about the extent of his crimes. "They discovered he wasn't just a corrupt rancher," reported Naomi. "He was part of an organization stealing land all over the Midwest. The scheme harmed hundreds of families." "So our complaint exposed something much bigger than we imagined," said Rachel. "Much bigger. The federal prosecutor's office estimates you helped save millions of acres of land that would have been stolen in the coming years." The magnitude of the impact of their actions left Derek humbled and grateful. "It's hard to believe it all started with a security job I took out of desperation. Sometimes the most important moments in our lives begin in ways we don't expect," Naomi observed. On the day of the festival, people from dozens of communities gathered at the settlement. There were farmers, artisans, merchants, students, and community leaders from across the region. The diversity was impressive, but the atmosphere was one of harmony and celebration. Derek was moved to see how his small decision to do the right thing had expanded into a network of cooperation and friendship among so many different people. During the festival, he was called to speak about his experience. At first, he felt nervous speaking to so many people, but soon felt comfortable telling his story. "A year ago, I was a lost man," he said. "I was in debt, estranged from my daughter, and ready to do anything for money. That's how I almost became an accomplice to a major crime. The audience listened in respectful silence, but I met a courageous woman who showed me it's never too late to choose the right path. She risked her life to protect her people and ended up saving my family too. He looked at Naomi, who was in the front row smiling with tears in her eyes. Today, my daughter and I are united again. Our land is prosperous, and we are part of a community that has welcomed us as family. All of this because a woman believed there was goodness in me when I didn't believe it myself. The audience applauded emotionally, and Derek saw he wasn't the only one with tears in his eyes. After the speech, many people approached to thank him and share their own stories of overcoming adversity. Derek realized he wasn't alone in his journey of personal transformation. During the evening, there was music and dance. Rachel and Nathan danced together, clearly in love. Naomi taught traditional dances to anyone who wanted to learn. Derek, who hadn't danced in years, allowed himself to be carried away by the music and the joy of the moment. At the end of the night, as guests began to disperse, the chief of the settlement made an announcement. This festival marks the birth of a new era in our region, an era where different peoples work together in respect and friendship. We hope this is the first of many celebrations like this one. The audience applauded enthusiastically. It was clear everyone wanted that harmony to continue. When Derek, Rachel, and Nathan returned home that night, they were exhausted but happy. "It was the most beautiful day I've ever lived," said Rachel. "For me too," agreed Nathan. "And for me," added Derek, "seeing all that diversity of people united in celebration, it was inspiring." The next morning, Naomi appeared for coffee, as had become customary. "How do you feel after yesterday?" she asked. "Proud," replied Derek. "Proud to be part of something bigger than myself. And rightfully so. You helped build something that will last a long time." Rachel joined them at the table, still radiant with happiness. "Dad, Nathan is going to officially ask me to marry him next week." Derek smiled. "And will you accept?" "I will. I love him and he loves me. And he understands the importance of family. Then we'll have a wedding to plan." "Actually," Naomi interjected, "we have 2 celebrations to plan." "2? The wedding and the inauguration of the community center we're going to build to house the offices of our cooperation network." Community center? A facility that will serve several communities in the region, a place for meetings, training, conflict mediation, and archiving important documents. Rachel got excited immediately. "Can I help design the filing and organization system?" "We were counting on that," smiled Naomi. Derek realized more changes were coming, but this time he felt no fear. Changes brought by conscious choices and careful planning were different from changes imposed by desperation and circumstance. "Where will the center be built?" "On the border, between our land and yours. A physical symbol of the union between our communities." The idea was perfect. A building that would literally connect their properties would be a constant reminder of how cooperation could overcome differences. In the following weeks, plans for the community center developed rapidly. Volunteer architects created a design that incorporated elements of traditional indigenous architecture with modern sustainable construction techniques. Derek contributed practical knowledge about foundations and drainage. Rachel planned the layout of the offices and archive areas. Nathan coordinated the participation of the settlement's youth in the construction. Naomi supervised the entire project, ensuring it respected the spiritual traditions of her people while serving the practical needs of all the communities involved. "This center represents everything we've managed to build together," she said in a planning meeting. "It's not just a building, but a symbol of hope for the future." Construction began in the fall. Volunteers from dozens of communities took turns working. It was impressive to see farmers, artisans, students, and community leaders working side by side. Derek was particularly moved when he saw Nathan and Rachel working together, planning not only their personal life, but also their contribution to the larger community. "They're going to be a strong couple," commented Naomi, watching the 2 young people. "They will. And they'll raise children who will grow up in this environment of cooperation and mutual respect." "Are you looking forward to being a grandfather?" "Very much. but even more so knowing that my grandchildren will grow up in a better world than the one I raised Rachel in. During the construction of the center, news arrived of the final verdict in the corruption scheme. Colonel Harrison and his accomplices received severe sentences. More importantly, all their properties were confiscated to form a restitution fund for the victims. "You will receive additional compensation," Naomi informed them. "The fund recognizes the crucial role you played in exposing the scheme." "We don't need more money," said Rachel. "Our life is already complete." "Then use it to strengthen the network's work. Invest in youth education, land protection, sustainable development." The suggestion made sense to Derek. Using money tainted by crime to fund positive projects seemed an appropriate form of poetic justice. "Let's create an educational fund," he decided, "so young people from all the communities in the region can study sustainable agriculture and environmental law." "And a cultural exchange program," added Rachel, "so the different communities can learn from each other." Naomi was visibly moved by the proposals. "You've truly understood the spirit of what we're building here." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us, who are just starting out. Now continuing. The inauguration of the community center was scheduled to coincide with the wedding of Rachel and Nathan. It was a double celebration, the union of two people and the union of two communities. In the week before the events, Derek had a deep conversation with Naomi about the future. "What comes next?" he asked. "We've managed to build something beautiful here, but how do we ensure it lasts?" "We can't guarantee," she admitted. "But we can plant seeds that have a chance to grow even if we're no longer here to water them." "What kind of seeds?" "Education, traditions, stories. Young people like Nathan and Rachel who will carry our values to the next generation." Derek thought about her words. Truly, the perpetuation of their work would depend on the people they were shaping and educating. "Rachel wants to document everything we've done here," he explained, "to create a record for other communities that want to replicate our model." "That's an excellent idea. Our story can inspire other people in other places." "And you? What are your personal plans?" Naomi hesitated before answering. "I'm thinking of studying law. There are many indigenous communities that need lawyers who understand their cultures and traditions." "You would be a formidable lawyer," said Derek sincerely. "Thank you. And you? How do you see yourself 10 years from now?" "Old, probably," Derek laughed. "But I hope to be alive long enough to see my grandchildren playing where there was once only conflict and distrust." On the wedding day, the local church was decorated with wildflowers and symbols from both cultures represented. The priest, who had been previously instructed about indigenous traditions, incorporated elements from both spiritualities into the ceremony. Derek walked Rachel to the altar, where Nathan waited for her, wearing the traditional clothing of his people. The emotion on both young people's faces was evident to all present. During the ceremony, the priest spoke about the importance of marriages that unite not just two people, but also two families and two communities. "Rachel and Nathan represent the hope that different cultures can come together in love and mutual respect," he said. "May their marriage be an example to all of us." When the newlyweds kissed, the church erupted in applause and tears of joy. Derek felt that Jennifer was present in some way, celebrating her daughter's happiness. The reception took place in the new community center, which was officially inaugurated during the celebration. The building was decorated with crafts from all the communities in the region, creating an atmosphere that truly represented the diversity and unity they had built. During the party, many people approached Derek to thank him and tell him how his story had inspired changes in their own lives. "Your courage to do the right thing changed more lives than you can imagine," said an elderly rancher. "And your personal transformation shows us it's never too late to change," added a teacher from town. Derek was humbled by the praise, but also proud of the positive impact his choice had generated. During the father of the bride's speech, he spoke straight from the heart. "2 years ago, I was a lost man," he said, "in debt, alone, and desperate. I almost became an accomplice to a terrible crime out of pure greed." The audience listened in respectful silence. "But my daughter and an extraordinary woman showed me there is always time to choose the right path. Today, I have not only regained my daughter, but I've gained an entire community as family. He looked at Rachel and Nathan, then at Naomi. May you young people always remember that your choices have the power to transform not only your own lives, but the lives of everyone around you. Always choose justice, compassion, and courage. The audience rose in emotional applause. Derek saw tears in the eyes of many present and knew his words had touched hearts. After the speeches, there was music and dancing that lasted into the early hours. It was a true celebration of life, love, and hope. When the party finally ended and the guests began to disperse, Derek stood alone for a moment in the community center, contemplating all that had happened. Naomi approached him. "What are you thinking about?" "About how life can change completely in such a short time. 2 years ago, I was here accepting a job that almost cost me my soul. Today, I'm here celebrating my daughter's wedding in the community center we helped build." "And how do you feel about that transformation?" "Grateful. An immense gratitude for having had the chance to choose the right path when it mattered," Naomi smiled. "And gratitude for having had the courage to accept that chance." The next day, Rachel and Nathan left for a brief honeymoon at an eco-lodge in the Everglades. Before leaving, Rachel hugged her father for a long time. "Thank you for becoming the father I always wanted to have," she whispered. "Thank you for giving me the chance to be that father," Derek replied. After the newlyweds left, Derek and Naomi sat on the porch to talk about the future. "The community center already has its first event scheduled," Naomi informed. "A meeting between leaders of traditional communities from 3 states to discuss land protection. So we're becoming a regional reference point?" "It seems so. Our success story is inspiring other communities to seek peaceful solutions to land conflicts." Derek felt proud but also a little worried about the responsibility. "I hope we can live up to the expectations." "We will. Because we built something based on solid values: justice, respect, cooperation, and love." In the following weeks, the community center truly became a hub of activities for the entire region. There were meetings, workshops, conflict mediations, and educational programs happening constantly. Derek took on the role of Agricultural Affairs Coordinator, using his experience to help small farmers implement sustainable techniques. Naomi became the lead mediator for conflicts involving traditional communities. Rachel, after returning from her honeymoon, established a legal consulting office at the center, offering free services to underserved communities. Nathan coordinated environmental education programs for youth. It was rewarding to see how each had found their place in that new world they had created together. One day, 6 months after the wedding, an unexpected visitor arrived. A journalist from a national magazine was interested in documenting their story for a feature on innovative solutions to rural conflicts. "Your story is gaining national attention," the journalist explained. "Other states want to know how to replicate your model." The interview lasted several hours, with the journalist talking to Derek, Naomi, Rachel, Nathan, and other members of the involved communities. "What do you think makes your model work when so many other attempts at rural cooperation fail?" asked the journalist. "Sincerity," Naomi answered. "Everyone involved is honest about their needs and limitations. There's no hidden agenda." "And mutual respect," Derek added. "We recognize that each community has valuable knowledge to contribute." "It also helps that we started small," Rachel observed. "We built trust gradually before attempting larger projects." Nathan contributed his perspective. "And we never lose sight that we're building something for our children and grandchildren, not just for ourselves." The journalist was impressed with the coherence and depth of the answers. "You've clearly thought a lot about why this works." "We had to think," said Naomi, "because we want others to be able to learn from our experience and replicate the success elsewhere." When the article was published a few months later, it generated national interest. Delegations from other states began visiting the community center to learn about their methods. Derek was surprised to discover he was considered a national example of personal transformation and social responsibility. "I never thought I'd become a public figure," he commented to Naomi. "Neither did I. But if our story can inspire positive change elsewhere, the exposure is worth it." With the increase in national attention, funding offers also arrived to expand their programs. Non-governmental organizations, corporate foundations, and even the federal government became interested in supporting their work. "We have to be careful," warned Rachel. "Too much money too fast can change the nature of what we've built here." "I agree," said Naomi. "We need to keep our core values, no matter how big this becomes." They decided to accept only funding that wouldn't compromise their autonomy, and that aligned with their principles. On the first anniversary of the community center, they organized a big celebration. Hundreds of people came from across the region to attend. During the party, the creation of a national network of community centers based on their model was announced. 5 other states had already expressed interest in establishing similar projects. "We are becoming the start of a national movement," said the state governor, who attended the celebration. Derek was moved thinking about the magnitude of what they had created from a seemingly desperate situation. "Who would have thought all this started with a security guard job I took for $300, he commented to Naomi during the party. "Sometimes the biggest transformations begin in the most unlikely moments," she replied. During his speech at the celebration, Derek reflected on the journey of transformation they had all lived. 3 years ago, I was a broken man, ready to compromise my integrity for money," he said. "Today, I am part of an extended family that includes hundreds of people from dozens of different communities." He paused to control his emotion. "This transformation didn't happen because I was special. It happened because courageous people showed me I had choices, and because I chose to listen to my conscience instead of my desperation." The audience listened in reverent silence. "All of you here also have choices every day, choices between greed and generosity, between prejudice and understanding, between despair and hope. May you always have the courage to choose the path that builds instead of destroys." The applause was long and emotional. Derek saw that many people were crying, touched by the sincerity of his words. After the celebration, news arrived that moved the whole family. Rachel was pregnant. "I'm going to be a grandfather," said Derek, hugging his daughter with tears in his eyes. "And I'm going to be an honorary aunt," added Naomi, who had become an integral part of the family. "Our child will grow up in a world where different peoples work together," said Nathan, clearly emotional. "And will grow up knowing their grandparents fought to build that world," added Rachel. Derek felt an immense responsibility, but also a profound joy. His grandchild would grow up in a community based on values he had helped establish. In the following months, as they prepared for the baby's arrival, the work of the community network continued to expand. New centers were established in other states, all based on the principles they had developed. Naomi began traveling regularly to help implement the new projects, bringing with her the experience and wisdom she had accumulated. "You've become a national leader," observed Derek during one of her visits. "We've become national leaders," she corrected. "This only worked because we did it together." Rachel, even while pregnant, continued coordinating the legal and administrative aspects of the network. Her work ensured all the new centers operated within the law and maintained the established ethical standards. Nathan developed educational curricula that were used in rural schools throughout the region, teaching young people about sustainable agriculture and intercultural cooperation. That winter, Emma was born, Derek's first granddaughter. The birth took place at home, following indigenous traditions that Naomi had taught Rachel, but with modern medical assistance to ensure safety. When Derek held Emma in his arms for the first time, he felt a deep connection to the future. "She will grow up in a better world than the one we grew up in," he whispered to the sleeping baby. "She will," Rachel agreed, "and she will know that this better world was built by her grandfather." Emma's presence brought a new dimension of meaning to all the work they had developed. Now they were not just building something for themselves or their current communities, but for future generations. Naomi became Emma's unofficial godmother, teaching her words in her native language from an early age and telling stories of her people's traditions. "She's going to be culturally bilingual," Nathan joked. "She'll understand both the indigenous world and the farmer's world." "That's how it should be," Derek said. "Future generations shouldn't have to choose between cultures. They should be able to appreciate and learn from all of them. When Emma turned 1, they held a party that combined Christian baptism traditions with indigenous naming ceremonies. It was a perfect symbol of the cultural synthesis they had managed to create. During the party, extraordinary news arrived. Their story had inspired the creation of a national rural conflict mediation policy. The federal government wanted to use their model as the basis for a program to be implemented across the country. "You've changed the way the United States deals with land conflicts," said the federal representative who brought the news. Derek was amazed by the magnitude of the impact their actions had generated. "All because a courageous woman convinced me to do the right thing," he said, looking at Naomi. "And because you had the courage to listen," she replied. That night, after all the guests had left and Emma was asleep, the family gathered on the porch to talk about the future. "Where do we go from here?" Rachel asked. "Wherever our values take us," Naomi answered. "We keep growing, but always holding to our core principles." "And always remembering where we started," Derek added, "so we never lose humility or compassion." Nathan held Emma in his arms, gently rocking her. "I want her to grow up knowing she can change the world, but that the greatest change always starts within ourselves." "She'll know," Derek said, "because we'll tell her this story from the time she's little. And she'll tell her children," Rachel added. "And so our lesson will endure," Naomi concluded. That night, Derek had the most vivid dream of his life. He dreamed of a future where Emma was grown up, working to expand even further the network of cooperation they had founded. In the dream, she was a respected leader who had learned to unite people from all backgrounds around common goals. When he woke up, he knew that dream was not just fantasy, but a vision of the legacy they were building. At breakfast, he shared the dream with the family. "That's how I want it to be," Rachel said. "Emma growing up knowing her mission in life is to build bridges, not walls. And knowing she has the example of her parents, her grandfather, and Aunt Naomi to inspire her," Nathan added. Naomi smiled, watching Emma trying to feed herself in her high chair. "She's already learning. Look how she accepts food from all of us without distinction. To her, we are all family." "That's how it should be for everyone," said Derek. In that moment, he understood that his personal transformation had been just the first step on a much larger journey. What had begun as a desperate decision to accept a questionable job had become a movement for social change that would affect generations. More importantly, he had regained his own humanity and built a family that went far beyond blood ties. When he looked at Emma, Rachel, Nathan, and Naomi, he saw not just people he loved, but living symbols of the possibility of transformation and hope. The man who had agreed to watch a Cherokee woman for 300 riés no longer existed. In his place was a grandfather, mentor, and community leader who had learned that true wealth is not measured in money, but in the ability to touch lives and build a better world for the next generations. And all of this because a courageous woman had believed that even a desperate man could choose to do the right thing when presented with the truth, with compassion and respect. End of story. This story shows us how a single moral choice can transform not only our own lives, but also the lives of countless others. Derek could have chosen the easy money, but he chose to listen to his conscience. And that decision created ripples of positive change that spread far beyond what he could have imagined. We want to know your opinion. Do you believe Derek made the right choice in trusting Naomi? What lessons from this story can be applied in our own lives? Share your thoughts in the comments. Leave a like if this story touched your heart, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring narratives about courage, transformation, and hope.